The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning. Welcome to the Robin Pod, wherever and whenever you are tuning in. The games are now coming thick and fast with our Challenge Cup game against Oldham just around the corner. Joining me to preview that game and to look back at the Robins' victory over St Helens is the housewives' favourite. Welcome back to the Robin Pod, Graham Turner.
Your word's not mine, John. I've got to give the fans what they want, haven't you?
Well, I must say that the housewives' favourite is 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗴𝗲, but of course he was unavailable to come on the Robin Pod this evening, so we had to settle with second best. Graham, let's look back at that game against St Helens because it was a performance that was fantastic. Of course it was. And of course we battered them last season. Don't forget that was a St Helens side that was much changed because of injuries, etc. But a trip to St Helens on a Friday night in March, normally you could predict the scoreline before you'd even got there. This is a different beast, this Hull Kingston Rovers side. And you saw that in that performance that they put out there.
Yeah, first of all, the performance was excellent. I thought for a full 80 minutes. This was a game again where we talked about this last week, John. I mentioned this being a benchmark of where we're currently at. And yes, we went over there and battered them last season, but this is a completely different setup now. They've got the big stars back. They've got the names on the field playing. So this, as you say, Friday night, away down the M62 to Saints, a trip notoriously ends up in us coming away from the Totally Wicked Stadium empty-handed. But again, that word performance, I think, was excellent throughout 1 to 17 for 80 minutes. And again, the result on the back of the performance was the one we were after. Yeah,
and of course, Graham, when when we spoke on the Robin Pod last week, we was questioning what the lineup would be. Of course, we didn't realise at the time whether Michael 𝗬𝗓 would be fit. Of course, Tyrone May, question marks over him. And then when we saw them in the starting lineup, of course, it just gives you that confidence that actually, no, we've got a great chance. I think, we admitted that if they wasn't playing, of course, it'd be a much more difficult encounter against St Helens. As soon as you saw that they were in the starting lineup, it just gives you that confidence that actually, we can go to this Saints side and come up with a performance. And then Graham, of course, Michael 𝗬𝗓 goes and comes up with the first try of the game.
Yeah, it's quite fitting again after we saw him go off against Wakey. It was debatable where he was going to be playing, but to see him back on, as you said, on the team sheet gives you that confidence. He's got that X factor in his game, and yeah, after 10, 11 minutes or so, to see him get that first try, settle things down a bit for us. Good try, good combination with May as well. It was May's kick, as I'm sure people have seen, that put it in. So both players making an impact within that first 10-minute spell. To get us over the whitewash and first score on the board.
Yeah, it was great to see him back, and of course there was all that talk pre-game, wasn't there, whether he'd be playing or not. He was there, and then you mentioned Tyrone May as well, another fantastic performance from him. But that first 20 minutes, Graham, it was tough, wasn't it? It was proper aggressive rugby league from the Robins, and that set the platform for me for the game. That is, I think ultimately from that, yeah, the scoreline was probably a bit closer than what you might think it had been big. But if you saw that first 20 minutes, which many people watching and listening to this, of course, will have done, wow, that was some effort to go, lay that platform, aggressive defence, charging into them. And that is ultimately as well, Mickey McAlorum, you saw his role in that. you can see you can see the game plan from 𝗀𝗬𝗋𝗄𝗃𝗃, and it worked perfectly against St Helens.
Yeah, we talked about it last week, John, didn't we, about going there with confidence and a game plan rather than just with a bag of hope. And I think it was evident that we went with confidence. We had a game plan, and yeah, that first 15, 20 minutes was ferocious. And as you say, there's various parties in it, but led well by 𝗂𝗂𝗹𝗃𝗀's defence. It was again first class, and I know people knock him for some of his attributes that he's got, but certainly one of them that is top of the shop is his willingness to put that hard work in and defend. And that was an intense, like you say, 20 minutes, I think it was, somewhere around there. And there's two ways I think that can go. One is it does set you up, and it drains the opposition of energy, which fortunately it worked for us. And the other side of that coin is the danger for us is if we invest too much energy in that first 20 minutes, we have nothing left for the back half of the game. But we did. We're a fit side, and we continued with that energy for the full 80 minutes again. So again, it just proves that when we do need to step up and raise our game against these really top sides, that we've got that ability to do so in the bank. And I think it was the former, whereby we were putting them under pressure, and that intensity and the hard yards they had to make just to try and get out their own 20, 30 metre mark. And the pressure we put on that shanked last tackle play that went straight into touch, that was all about of sheer pressure and sheer willingness to get off the line. And I don't know if anybody's watched it back yet, but the inside, the Rovers video, the inside story one, whereby it's sort of like a pitch side view of the game, but it really gives a feeling of how the Saints fans reacting to our speed off the line, and they were up in arms about offside and the noise that was created, like we do when we feel that at Craven Park that the team's shooting the line. But they were very, very noisy, but it was very well orchestrated, and it's not just by luck. That takes a lot of planning and a lot of effort and a lot of skill to execute that, because it is literally half a metre either way, and the ref will ping you. So yeah, fair play to us for doing that and then seeing it through all the way through to the 80-minute mark.
It's funny you mention that, Graham, because I reflect upon not so long ago when the East Stand used to shout out for Leeds Rhinos when they was in the pomp, them flat passes. Yep. Everybody call a forward pass, and it wasn't just that they were really good at doing them flat passes, and they got it. Yeah, do you know what they got? They were so good at it that eventually they got away with a few. And I think that's what happens in terms of our line defence. We're that good at it that eventually the referee gives you the benefit of doubt on a couple as well, because you become so good at what you do. And it's a bit of a weird feeling, actually, isn't it? Because we used to be the side who watched these other supporters who watched these other sides doing what we only hoped what we could do. We could do what they're doing. And now that we're actually the leaders in that is it's really interesting. And I think that's down to great coaching. It's interesting as well. At the same time, 𝗂𝗂𝗹𝗃𝗀 went off, 𝗪𝗏 went off, and you've seen the impact that he's having. We talked on the last Robin pod about, you've got to be naive to think that he's going to be basically just barnstorming his way from the 10-metre line to their, 10-metre line and scoring a try. He's there to set a platform for the side, and he's doing it really well. And of course, we've seen, I don't know if you saw it, Graham, the social media reports about, we saw the Roosters, their opening game of the NRL season not got off to the best start, and a certain pundit over in Australia saying that the Roosters should be bringing 𝗂𝗏 back over to Sydney. 𝗀𝗬𝗋𝗄𝗃𝗀 today in his pre-game press conference, he said there's no chance of that happening. And he actually admitted that they've already started contract talks, although tentatively, about him potentially staying for another season. So, I think, like we said, people have been naive expecting 𝗂𝗏 to be that barnstorming player who breaks through every single tackle. What he does do very well, Graham, though, is bringing the defensive side into him. So he's got the option then to offload. but also his leadership around that side, and then opening 20, he just sets the tone along with the likes of 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗃. And I think against St Helens, that's what really came to the fore about how important he is in them opening minutes.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now is why we've bought him. Like you say, he's 36 now, whatever he is, so he's not going to be that barnstorming prop. We didn't buy him for that, but his experience, his leadership on the field is immense. And yeah, he's almost setting the tone with 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗃 for that opening stint about what we're all about. His work rate, again, look back on that inside video from the club, and you sort of get a few clips of him in action in the defensive line, and really setting the platform of who goes where. He's communicating well, he's organised, and then he's putting the shoulder in as well, and it just rubs off on other people. And I think one of the biggest messages that I took from the comments that Peter's made about the speculation, because that's all it is, I think, about Sydney, is that it's not what he does on the field necessarily, it's his professionalism every day of the week that is in and around. So that again is part of what the package of what comes with him. And I think, yeah, it's wishful thinking, I think, for the Roosters if they want Hargreaves back. I think they've got much bigger problems that he can't solve at the Roosters at the minute, that even if they had him back, they ain't going to all of a sudden become well beaters. So yeah, let's focus on him with us. Let's keep him fit, keep him on the field and doing what he's doing. Because I think at the minute we've seen 4 games out of him in Super League, 4 good games as well. I think he can only get better for us as well.
Yeah, and what I, as good as that opening 20 minutes was, Graham, what I really enjoyed was the response to the St Helens try. The fact that the Robins didn't fold, and actually they came back stronger from that. And we saw a beauty of a try from Tom Davis, a player who's settled into life at the Robins absolutely perfectly. Fantastic try, fantastic response. And that's what gave me the confidence in the Robins that actually this side is serious about what they're going about, their business, about what they're doing, where we could end up. This is a side who is resilient, robust. Don't let something that maybe went against the play bite them, and they came back with a perfect response to that St Helens try.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the disappointing bit out of all that dominance in the first 20 minutes or so, was that we only got 4 points on the board. We didn't capitalise it. There was that opportunity where 𝗀𝗽𝗲𝗏 broke and laid it on the inside for Mikey again, and he fumbled it over the line. So that was a good chance gone begging. But yeah, as you say, that try that was created by 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏, I think it was more of a off the cuff reaction as a player wasn't tackled properly, came out the back, he skated across the line, kicked it through, and yeah, we were 6-4 down. And teams of old, we could have been looking at ourselves thinking, what on earth's gone on here? How come we're behind? And we've played that well. But yeah, that word resilience, I know we talked about it last week, is key, and it just didn't derail us whatsoever. It just meant we looked at the game plan again and stuck to it, and then just kept to our principles. And scored a really good try, Davis in the corner just before half-time to really give us that boost before half-time. And say it was a spectacular try, but if you work it back, it was a really well-worked try as well. Yeah,
and then following half-time to be 20 points to 6 up against St Helens. 2 scores from Oliver Geldart. Great assist from Burgess for his first try, wasn't it? Carl felt, I was there at the ground, and I'm still wondering why Kyle Felt didn't even attempt to jump for that ball when he got Burgess who steamed onto it. He's as tall as he is. That's their problem, isn't it? But then to have the presence of mind to then offload the ball and present 𝗀𝗽𝗏𝗏𝗏 with probably one of the easiest scores that he'll ever score. But what I really enjoyed, Graham, with them moments was the link-up play, which is what we'd come to wonder if that would happen. Obviously, Burgess played out on the other wing last season. He's come to the other side now to play partner with 𝗀𝗽𝗏𝗏𝗏, and that partnership looks like it's going to bear fruits come the end of the season.
It does, and again, it's that left-hand side again for us, isn't it? I think First of all, I'm not quite sure why Burgess didn't just fall down and plonk the ball down
Well,
himself.
I agree. That was the thing for me. He could have literally just dropped on the floor, but that's Joe Burgess, isn't it?
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, it looked about 8 inches off the off the ground level. And I was just like, well, put it down. But anyway, he did what he did, and no harm done. But yeah, the link-up play was looking good down that left-hand side, and when you put Tanganoa into the mix as well, of that three. But I think with 𝗲𝗬𝗋, what we're seeing now is he's getting a consistent run of games under his belt. Hopefully, and I don't want to sort of jinx this, but injury-free so far. And it was a bit stop-start last year, but I think now we're seeing what benefit both in defence and attack that he can bring when he's fit, when he's playing well, and when he's got his mate outside him to sort of help him out as well.
Yeah, and I think what was interesting as well, Graham, is that the Robins built up a good lead sort of early on in that second half. And you were expecting a sort of onslaught in the second half from St Helens to come back. That never really materialised, but I think that's a lot to do with the hard work the Robins did in defence, especially in that first half. And then, of course, the second half, the sort of, they didn't really deliver anything. Some of the St Helens, especially imports that they'd brought in pre-season, didn't really deliver. But I think it was more about the Robins and how they defended that restricted St Helens from being able to do anything. And do you know what? In the end, it was a comfortable victory. I've watched it back on Sky Sports, and the commentators were almost wishing a Saints try, expecting it to come. And in reality, I was there at the ground. You didn't really get that sense of something special. They relied a lot on Wellesby to be trying to sort of, punch a hole in the line. That never really happened. Lomax, he looks like a player who's got a yard slower, not just in pace, but quick in mind. And they just sort of looked a little bit slow, clunky, which is very different from a Saints side we've seen before. But do you know what? I think that's not about Saints. I think that's just how well Rovers played in terms of restricting their ability to come up with any special plays.
Yeah, I completely agree, John. I think that's down to our game plan, game management. I think was very good. And like you say, watching it was never fingernail biting time or edge of your seat stuff. It was a controlled performance. And like when we got those quick fire tries, it didn't take the pressure off, but it focused the mind a little bit. And I think you're right. There was an expectation because there was still 20 plus minutes to go. Well, there's still 20 minutes to go, and Saints can do what Saints do, but they never really got into that rhythm. We disrupted them a lot. They had sporadic opportunities, which were never really more than half chances, if we're honest. And again, I thought we just defended really well in that back 20 minutes, as if it were the first 20 minutes. And yes, they scored that try to bring it within 2 scores, but after that, it was really, really half chances, and game management was good from us.
Yeah, one player I really want to highlight, though, is Graham, is Jack Broadbent. I think a player who has taken pretty much every opportunity that's been afforded of him. Very rarely has he let us down since he signed from Castleford. A player that many supporters would have probably expected to be a backup player. Not someone who's really going to feature too much in the first team. Well, I tell you what, he has really stepped up. And I put out on social media, following the victory over St Helens, 𝗫𝗓𝗋𝗋, is he actually a shoo-in now for that number 1, or is Jack Broadbent pushing his name forward to actually be that starting fullback? Because not only does Jack look more comfortable in defence, actually with ball in hand, attacking that line, he's coming up with some great passes, some great lines running. His kick return meters pretty much stack up with 𝗫𝗓𝗋𝗋's. And I do wonder if 𝗀𝗧𝗓𝗋 may afford him the opportunity to stake a claim for that number 1 spot on the back of the fact that 𝗫𝗓𝗋𝗋's, of course, through injury, is missing.
Yeah, well, I think in the press conference today, Peter said Niall's got one more protocol to overcome when he sees a specialist for clearance, and then he's available for selection. But he didn't give anything else away about that. So if he's true to his word and how he's acted in previous previous rounds and previous season, he's almost challenged the player back to say you've got to go back and earn that jersey now. Broadbent, as I agree completely with you, Broadbent's done absolutely nothing wrong. I think we talked about this last week, John. It was under the grand final jersey was Broadbent, so that's how highly is regarded by Peters and the coaching staff. So yeah, really pleased that we've got a solid fullback in there at the minute. He's done absolutely nothing wrong, and you know, just to add to what you said about his ability there, he scored that great try against Salford the week before, coming into the line, and sort of that jinking, weaving run got him over the line. So I think he's got that in his game as well. So if push comes to shove and he retains the jersey, then I don't think anybody would have any complaints with that.
No, and another player I want to just highlight, and I think we even talked about it last Robin pod. Would Ryan Hall ever be replaced? Tom Davies, 26 carries, 161 metres. We've got someone who can kick, return, but I'm not having Ryan Hall scoring that try Tom Davies did. No way whatsoever.
No, I agree.
And that's no disrespect to Ryan Hall, by the way. It's just the evolution of this side.
Yeah, I agree, John. The numbers are comparable with what Ryan Hall was doing. So I think we've got a real find and bringing out the best of Tom Davies for us. I think the way Ryan Hall would have approached that try would just be to try and steamroller through the player rather than take the acrobatic route. That's the only way he'd have scored that. I don't think he would have gone aerial like Davies did. But again, I think we talked about it last week. That's something else that we've highlighted that is in Tom Davies's game that at the minute Ryan Hall doesn't have. That is an asset to us. So yeah, his numbers are good every single week. He's always 7 or 8 out of 10 on the scoreboard. He's coming up with key tries as well, but he's equally coming up with those hard yards out of defensive players and backfield, which are so valuable in giving the forwards a rest as well, but gaining us valuable meters upfield.
Yeah, and of course, Elliot Minchella, James Batchelor do what they do, tackling 44 tackles from Minchella. James Batchelor, 46 tackles, and one stat I always love highlighting. We've already spoke about how good he is in defence, and you can tell he's been brought in to do a specific job, because it was another game where Michael 𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗏 had no carries and made no meters. So it's but do you know what? I get it, and it's not a criticism. It is just highlights the specific job that he's been brought in to do, and of course the timing of when Jes Litton comes on. That is where Jes Litton comes alive. So yeah, I just like highlighting that because it's just.
I bet Jes's numbers are. Bet Jes's numbers are 0 and 0, are they?
No, well I'll tell you what, Jes Litton. It's not pretty reading. 3 carries, 20 meters, although an average gain of 7. But look, stats are there to be looked at in terms of numbers. It's actually when you watch the game, which is the most important part, and the influence. So yeah, I like that Michael 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 on, because I'm on stat watch with him in terms of meters made and carries, because I just find it fascinating.
That's to add it up for the whole season, mate.
Yeah, and to qualify that, and then that time he was on the pitch, he made 18 tackles. So so
anyway, 25 minutes, 27 minutes.
Yeah, I digress for him, because I do think I can clearly see the job that he's doing, and I'm in full belief Willie Peters is right for what he's brought him in to do. So yeah, let's see how that pans out over the season. It's an ever evolving side, and of course we're still early on. Graham. Now, of course, we face Oldham in the Challenge Cup on Friday night. And I spoke to Steve Till earlier today for Robins Revisited, as he took us back down memory lane to remember some games that have gone before. Steve, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you back to the Robin Pod Weekly for another look back at games from yesteryear. Of course, we take on Oldham in the Cup on Friday night. Where are you taking us back to this time, Steve?
1964. In fact, it's not just one match, it's 3 matches. Cup tie, 11th of April, Headingley, 28,556 there. Rovers are leading, 5-3. Mike Blackmore try. Rovers had 70% of the possession. And we're all thinking, well, this is it. We're at Wembley for the first time. Oldham had never been to Wembley, by the way, either. So both teams were looking for that debut at Wembley. And Rovers leading 5-3, minute to go. Oldham had the ball 30 yards out. Their hooker, Len McIntyre, and he did something he'd never done in his life and something I'd never seen live. He dropped a goal to make it 5-5. So the dreams were shattered for that moment for Rovers, and Oldham had a lift. But McIntyre said afterwards it was the first goal he'd ever dropped, and it was certainly the first drop goal I'd ever seen live. There's plenty of them nowadays, but in those days, no one did them, no one kicked them. But anyway, as I say, Rovers had 70% of the possession. And it was an absolute classic match with the ball being swung backwards and forwards. Again, in those days, no 6 tackles, and the play of the ball was a 3-yard play of the ball. So you only had to get back 3 yards, so you had to be good. So anyway, the scene was set to go to Station Road in Swinton, which was basically a drop kick and a punt from Oldham. 27,209 in, 10 minutes to go. Rovers are leading 14-7, and we're thinking we're going to Wembley again. But no, we allowed Oldham to score a try. The winger scored a try, Jeff Sims. What he did, he was tackled, he made a run down the wing. He was tackled by Mike Blackmore, Rovers winger, his opposite number. But again, in those days, you could actually, when you got up to play the ball, you could tap the ball with your foot, pick it up and play the ball to yourself. And that's exactly what Jeff Sims, the Oldham winger, did. He got up, tapped the ball and went over in the corner, leaving Frank Dyson with a touchline kick. Frank Dyson, ex-Huddersfield, Oldham fullback, and he slotted it over to make it 14-12 to Rovers. And then with a minute to go, the referee actually gave 6 penalties on the trot to Oldham. And the last one was within kicking range. Well, I say within kicking range, it was 40 yards out. But Frank Dyson came up again, cometh the hour, cometh the man, and he slotted it over and made it 14-14. So we were in extra time territory. And in those days, extra time meant 15 minutes each way. But the problem was, they'd kicked off at 6:45 and darkness was setting in. And in fact, the referee, Oldham scored in the first half of extra time. There was about a minute to go of the first half of extra time. And the referee, Dennis Davis, blew his whistle because he couldn't see what was going on. Darkness had set in. So with Oldham leading 17-14, he abandoned the match. So a lot of discussions went on. Should the result stand? Shouldn't it? And the Rugby League decided, no, we're going to go for a second replay. And that came the following Monday at Fartown, Huddersfield. 32,757 fans in the ground. And I was one of them. It was absolutely pouring down. The wind was blowing. It was not conducive to good rugby. But what we saw was an absolutely superb match. The first half, Rovers scored first when Peter Flanagan put Mike Blackmore in for a try, and that was the only try of the first half, and Rovers were leading 7-2 at half time after Kellett had kicked a goal. And then in the second half, a superb performance from Rovers pack, ably led by Harry Poole, but equally so by Jim Drake. Now, Jim Drake was one of the famous Drake twins of the Hull pack in the 50s. Jim had signed for Rovers, and he stopped a certain try, prop forward, tackling a winger into touch. Sims looked like scoring, but Jim Drake tackled him into touch And from there on, Rovers came downfield, and Arthur Bunting went over the line, under the post. Cyril Kellett kicked the goal, 12-2 to Rovers, and that's how it ended. Rovers were at Wembley, and Oldham's dreams were shattered. Fantastic occasions. As I say, 32,757. Can I just mention the other semi-final, Widnes and Castleford? They drew in their first match at Swinton. They drew 5-5, 25,602, the crowd. And their replay was held at Bellevue. And you wouldn't guess in a million years what the crowd was for that one. Bellevue Wakefield, incidentally. Widnes won 7-5. The crowd at Bellevue was 28,732. So it was a Widnes Rovers final, but the Rovers semi-finals drew a bigger crowd combined of 88,000, and the final did of 84,000. And when you had the other semi-final crowds, well over 100,000 people saw those semi-finals and the replays, and for Rovers it was great times.
And of course, Graham, I'm sure there was lots of happy memories of you going to them games with Steve as a young whippersnapper. But before we bring Graham back in, I caught up with the head of media at Oldham, George Riley, ahead of the Challenge Cup game on Friday, and he gives us his thoughts and insight ahead of that game. Now, as we head towards the game on Friday evening, I'm delighted to be joined by Head of Media at Oldham, George Riley, who's also the Clubman of the Year. Fantastic accolade. George, welcome to the Robin Pod. What's the mood around Oldham, the supporters? What's it like ahead of the game on Friday?
Excited ahead of Friday, although obviously being a championship team and it being on a Friday night with both the fan base and most of the squad having other jobs, that's not ideal. But if we're going to fulfil the dream of getting into Super League, that's something that we've got to look forward to. You can't just always play Sunday 3 o'clock. Yeah, really excited when the draw came out. The form team, top of Super League, grand finalists. You can't wish for a better test. The head coach Sean Long says always that he wants to be tested against the best, and I would say as a rugby league observer that Wigan would probably disagree, but we're coming up against the form side here in any tier of the British game at the moment. I believe so. So really excited. Obviously, a little bit down after Sunday's result in the Championship, which I'm sure we'll discuss in a moment. But generally, really optimistic. It's a club going places, a club on the up, a great draw for Oldham, and yeah, a really exciting fixture to get to sit on the M62 for a few hours on a Friday afternoon for.
Oh, we're well used to that, George. So don't worry. It's great for other fans to be able to experience that as well. I mean, you mentioned about the Friday night game. There's the squad at Oldham. It's littered with players who've vastly experienced in rugby league. Many who have played at Craven Park before. But let's rewind a little bit and talk about how this squad has been assembled, why it's been assembled, and the transformation that the club's undergone over the last couple of years.
Yes, well, Oldham, obviously a famous old rugby league name, founder member of Super League, going back to the late 90s when it all started, but fell on some very tough times over the past few years and under previous ownership. A lot of fans became detached with the club when it was toiling very low in League One. But we're a couple of years into a rebuild, a re-engagement with the fans, and a real go on and off the pitch to try and make this famous old name great again. There was a change in ownership, a consortium led by Mike Ford, a famous Oldham name, former coach, great player of his own right, of course, and known from what he achieved in the past as a coach in rugby union. Father, of course, of George Ford, who's still playing in rugby union and involved in the England setup at the moment as well. So Mike was integral and has been integral to driving this club forward alongside the chairman, Bill Quinn, who's been so dedicated with his financial backing of this project to, yes, on the pitch, try and get Oldham back where it was. There's a lot of talk and excitement. Could they get back into Super League, in the next few years? But more than that, it's about re-engaging. I mentioned the fan base before, a fan base that was lost really and had enough of the dark times and become detached from this club. Can we get them back in? Oldham playing at Boundary Park, which is a brilliant facility, a great old football ground as well. So there's all kind of ingredients on and off the pitch. And you mentioned the squad at the top of that question, Jono, and that's why this squad has been assembled with Bill. I mentioned Bill Quinn, his financial backing, Mike Ford's leadership off the pitch, and a head coach that I haven't mentioned yet, who's one of the greatest rugby league talents that Britain has ever produced, in Sean Long. So it's a very exciting squad. It's a very big squad as well, a 31-man squad with some big names in there. A name that 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗲 fans will know very well in Phoenix, 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 𝗃𝗃𝗃. That's a pronunciation I've got the hang of very, very quickly.
George, you pronounce it far better than I do, so I'm glad you said it. I'll refer to him as PLT for the rest of the interview.
First time we go with his full name, and then it's PLT. But he was with Oldham last year, and he was a real bright spark. He was the Betfred League One Player of the Year last year, and I know Mike and Sean were delighted that he's back with us, albeit on loan from you guys this year. He's absolute dynamite. He's so good to watch. He has got Super League pedigree, and he really wants to play Super League as well. So he's spent the whole pre-season with you, training with you guys. He's got the 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗃 squad number. He's got the 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗃 training gear, and then just a few weeks ago he popped back up and ready to go, Sean, and he's been back with us. So you throw him into the mix, an exciting young star of the future, and then real experience elsewhere. That was the winter, bringing in Josh Drinkwater from Warrington, he was in the Challenge Cup final only last summer. So incredible that Oldham have got hold of Josh. So he's in there. Gil Dudson, another Super League name signing. Adam Milner. These are names signed just for this season. Matty Ashurst, Ian Thornley from Wakefield, along with some really good existing talent, the likes of Matty Wildy, who's been around the block but still as good as they come. And George Hurst, look out for him. He's signed at Wigan Warriors, an Oldham boy who's come through the ranks. He's gone to Wigan, but he's back with Oldham on loan as well. So it's a really exciting squad. Sean Long is trying to gel it, trying to keep everyone happy, trying to keep everyone hungry, and I can absolutely guarantee you that everyone will be hungry for this showpiece game. And what an opportunity on Friday night to show for the players what they're capable of against such a big opponent in 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗃.
Yeah, and Oldham have enjoyed a good start to the season, haven't they? If you look at the results that they've achieved so far this season, probably the defeat against Barrow last weekend, was that a surprise, albeit with a number of players missing?
Yeah, I think for the casual observer, mate, looking in, that would be one of those results. If you're like me and you're checking the results on a Sunday night, that would be the one you would think, oh, I wasn't sure about that. But you're right, a few injuries. Sean got a bit of criticism actually from Oldham fans because of the squad he put out. But the truth is he didn't have much choice. It's a big squad for a reason. And most of those names I mentioned there weren't playing. I didn't even mention Danny Craven, who you'll know, who's had a really good career. So Craven and Drinkwater were out. Gil Dudson was out. Thornley was out. Ashurst was out. It was a squad good enough to win that game at Barrow, don't get me wrong. And last month Oldham played Barrow in the Challenge Cup and hammered them at Boundary Park. So that was why it was perhaps a surprise result. But I just take nothing. I prefer to look at the opponent. And Barrow, it's one of those really dodgy places to go. A bit like Batley. You turn up at Batley, you think we could get turned over here if we're not on it. It was a hot day. It was a big kind of flat, heavy pitch. The crowd was good and vocal. Oldham didn't quieten down the crowd quick enough, really. Barrow got on the front foot. They got 𝗕𝘂𝗃𝗃𝗃 back from St Helens on loan for the game. So that really helped. And of course, first try was him. Individual effort, kick over the top, lightning quick. and Oldham fell 10-0 behind, and in truth, never really threatened to get back in the game. They picked up 2 more injuries actually on the day in George Hurst and Logan Astley. It was just one of those days that you got the feeling everything kind of went Barrow's way, didn't go Oldham's way. Barrow were brilliant. Oldham weren't at it. I'm not the coach. I'm not a player. I couldn't tell you why. It was disappointing. You're right. So that was a deflating result. But take that away. You know, Oldham have stepped up from League One into the Championship this year, and they started off with a massive victory over York, who are one of the teams tipped to do pretty well in the Championship. And Oldham hammered them at Boundary Park. That perhaps put a bit of pressure on Oldham. Everyone thinking, hang on, look at this team, they're going to do the business. And then it was back down to earth the following week with a draw against Batley, and then this defeat to Barrow. So I think we're all learning that it's a work in progress. It's going to be a tough year in the Championship, and it'll all be a good learning experience. But you're right, they are going well, but still in both cups as well. Obviously this one Friday night, and still in the 1895 Cup as well, which is the other cup we get for the teams outside of Super League. So yeah, the mood's still pretty good. Last couple of days, yeah, obviously disappointment because it's the first defeat of the season, and Oldham went through all of last season only losing once. So Sean and the guys will have had, they'll have had the review on Monday, and that, I stayed away from that one. But they'll be good to go. They'll be good to go for Friday, and I would be pretty confident in saying it will be a different Oldham you'll see Friday than the one that you saw at Barrow.
Well, that's key, isn't it? Because as we record this, for both sides, we haven't had the squad announcements. Of course, you mentioned about likes of Josh Drinkwater, Ian Thornley, Matty Ashurst, Gil Ludson, all missing from that defeat to Barrow. Are you expecting these big name, experienced players to be back for Friday night?
I'm hoping so. Obviously, I'm not going to give away any of Sean's secrets, and I actually don't know the squad. Just before we started recording this, I actually texted Sean to remind him that it's a 12 o'clock Wednesday deadline that he needs to give me his squad by. We don't want to get off and we're taken by surprise this Friday night game, because we normally don't have to get it out till Friday rather than Wednesday. So he might text me his squad through while we're recording this, but I've not had it yet. I don't know is the answer. I would hope so. Certainly with the injury that we suffered with Logan Astley, who came in the halves on Sunday. I would hope that either or both of Craven and Drinkwater are fit. I was told it was soreness and niggles rather than serious injuries. So I would hope that when the initial squad's named, they'll be in it. As for the forward pack, I honestly don't know, but I think anyone who has a chance of playing for Oldham will want to play in this game.
Yeah,
they've got a tough run of games coming up. I think the next Championship game is against London, who were in Super League, as you'll know, last year. But this is a really good opportunity to find out how good these players are against, like I say, the team at the top of Super League. So I think if there's any chance of any of those names that I mentioned playing, I think they'll be out there. Yeah, and I'd like to think it's a pretty good squad that Sean sends to 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗲 for this game.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of focus on the 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗏 squad announcement as well, because, of course, when Super League sides take on low league opposition, some supporters expect there to be a raft of changes. It'd be interesting to see how Willie Peters goes with this one. Because
what do you think? Is he likely to rest a few or not?
Well, I ran a poll over on X yesterday asking supporters what they think. It got close to 500 votes. 70% of them said that he should rest a few. I'd be surprised. I think Willie Peters is quite a hard ass. He likes to, if his players are fit, they play. I can't imagine him having a conversation with the likes of Mikey Lewis and Warwick Hargreaves, and if they're fully fit, they want to play. I can't imagine there being a conversation where Willie Peters says, "I'm going to rest you," and they're happy with that. So I do think there's probably an opportunity where maybe players have been carrying a few niggles over the last few weeks. This may be their opportunity to have a rest or to undergo any treatment. Bear in mind, our next Super League game isn't until the following Sunday against Lee. So it does give a big chunk of time to rest players who maybe have been carrying some injuries. But I do think that we will see a close to first choice team on Friday night. That said, our reserve lineup against St Helens on Saturday featured players like Eric Dorrow, Danny Richardson, Ruin, AJ Wallace, Bill Leyland, Jack Brown. There's every Lee Kershaw. There's every chance that they've been prepped in that reserve team game against St Helens to then come into the first team. So yeah, I think that's where the interest is. And don't forget as well, it's still unfortunately fresh in people's minds, the Challenge Cup defeat to Oldham back in 2016. And I think people are always wary of that banana skin. And then, hey, look, if Oldham turn up with their best available squad, you know, it makes a game of it, doesn't it? So I think that's why
I was having a look at that. I was having a look at that 2016 lineup as well, because you had a couple of the players in our squad.
Yeah, I've got
Kieran Dixon and Ian Thornley were both lining up for the Robins that day, weren't they? And now they're hopefully lining up with Oldham. You know, Thornley's been out injured, but hopefully he'll be back, and Kieran's still doing what he does, popping over touchline conversions and going for length of the field intercepts. He never ages. So yeah, it could be good. I think if there are two decent squads out there, it might not be the walkover that a lot of neutrals would expect.
Yeah, and it's not been obviously, by the time people are watching and listening to this, it'll probably been confirmed, or you may already know about PLT and his status. Obviously, he's on loan to Oldham.
I'm assuming he can't play. I've not had confirmation of that. My assumption was he wouldn't be eligible in the terms of his loan to play against you guys.
Yeah, which is a shame, because I know of him, he'd be desperate to play as well. He would be desperate to play in that.
Absolutely love that. He wants to be playing Super League now. He's so ambitious. He is so hungry, and an opportunity to play against the head coach that he is trying to convince that he is Super League ready. That is the best possible opportunity for you, isn't it? To do that, to impress in those circumstances. But I have no doubt that he will get there. He will be a Super League player at some point. He has those. There are bits of his game that he didn't actually have a great game. Phoenix on Sunday, he dropped a couple, but when he's on it, he just kind of appears behind the line, kind of off the third pass from the two halfbacks, like any good fullback will do. And if he sees a gap, you're not catching him. He's so good to watch. So yeah, it'd be a shame if he's not involved in this.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a fantastic doff of the cap to Oldham that Willie Peters is entrusted you guys with him, because I know there's high hopes for him in terms of where his career will go in terms of Hulkington Rovers, and like you said already, that he looks primed for Super League. So there's no doubt by sending him out to you guys on loan for a season-long loan deal, you know, it shows that the things at your club at Oldham are being done properly, done right. The atmosphere, the experience, the coaching, the management of the players is right. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens Friday night. Just before you go, George, I noticed you're an ambassador for State of Mind.
Yeah.
Every time we do the Robin Pod, I always feel it's important to shine light on community work, organisations like State of Mind, charities, etc., who are doing fantastic work in the community and in rugby league. Can you tell us a bit more about State of Mind?
Yeah, well, we're very, very blessed, aren't we, in rugby league to have a couple of fantastic mental health charities in affiliated to the sport, in State of Mind Sport and Rugby League Cares as well. Obviously, Rugby League Cares has grown and grown, and it's far more than just mental health support and a mental health initiative now. But State of Mind, it was a charity that was born some 12 years ago now, following the tragic passing of Terry Newton. That was the reason that State of Mind is here. Terry, a name that will be synonymous with any rugby league fan, one of the great number nines that the British game has ever produced, and he took his own life in 2011, and that was a story that was so shocking, because A, of who he was, and B, the manner of the news, what the news was, and I mean, I can remember exactly where I was that day. I was at a rugby league match, sitting in a room with the likes of Paul Sculthorpe, and these whispers were going around that Terry Newton had died, and I just remember the shock on everyone's face, and it was just an incredible tragedy. But one good that did come out of that was a meeting between some mental health clinicians. What can we do to ensure that there isn't another Terry Newton, that a tragedy like this, whereby one of our players takes his own life because he can see no way forward, and nobody knows that he's struggling in the first place. How can that happen? And State of Mind was born off the back of that, and they are there to help. And we do a lot of work and have done. I've been involved for a number of years now, and going into rugby clubs, going into schools, going into businesses, workplaces, colleges, universities, and opening conversations about mental health. You know, we offer a presentation, a very basic outline of mental health awareness, how mental health and mental fitness is nothing to be ashamed of, and how actually it's a real strength to open up and talk about it. Where I think as blokes, aren't we, and certainly in this sport as rugby league, we're kind of brought up to think it's a weakness. And actually, if you show a sign of I'm struggling with something, that's a weakness, which I think we now know is bollocks, isn't it? It's the opposite. If we have the ability to tell someone we're struggling, that's a real strength. It's not a weakness at all. So that's the kind of work I'm involved in doing. That obviously I don't do as much as it now. I'm so involved with Oldham, but it's something that still means a lot to me, having gone through mental health problems and struggles of my own. I've been in some really dark places, and I think when you struggle personally with something like that, and you're in spots in your life that you can't see a way out, I think it really gives you a real desire to help other people when they're in a similar situation. That's what I felt when I've struggled myself. It's like, well, what's the point of feeling like this if I can't use it to some good? So I like try and talk about the own experiences I've had and the things that have gone wrong in my life and the dark places I've been in mentally, and share it with other people in the hope that if just one person takes something from it and think, I'm so glad I listened to that today, actually, I'm going to take something from that, then that's a good thing to do. So it's about opening that conversation, sharing vulnerability, and let people know, if you're struggling, that's all right. You're not on your own. A lot of us are struggling with it. And it's the most normal thing in the world, but, together we'll help each other. So that's a very long answer to my involvement with State of Mind, but it's mental health in general, and men's mental health is something that I'm very, very passionate about. And a charity like State of Mind is, they were there for me when I was struggling. So I'm absolutely happy to do anything I can to give back when, I'm in a better place and I'm able to do so. So that's a long-winded explanation of my involvement with State of Mind as well, alongside my other work.
And of course, there'll be people, probably listening, watching this, who may benefit from being in touch with State of Mind. How can they go about doing that? Yeah,
well, the usual ways, really. If you can get in touch on any of the socials, State of Mind as any socials, there's a website as well with signposting both to immediate mental health supports if you need immediate advice or help. All the places to do that will be on the State of Mind website and through the socials, and we'll very quickly be able to get you in touch with the right person. I think the most important thing is to remember that there is always help out there. If you're ever feeling at a place where you don't think there's any way forward or anyone to help, I can guarantee you from personal experience that there is always someone, there is always a way. And you might actually be surprised the amount of people who want to help you, if you can find the strength just to let people know that you need help. Because a lot of us just go about our lives, there's so much going on in our own lives that we don't even notice that other people are struggling sometimes. We might even know that someone else needs help. I kind of visualize it as, falling down a dark well, and people will be walking past the top, no idea that you're stuck down there. It's up to you to shout up. And if you shout up and get someone's attention, you might be surprised at how many people are queuing up at the top to lift you back out, but they don't know you're down there. So it's kind of like finding that strength with others, just to let people know that, I'm struggling a bit here. Any chance you could help, or you could listen. And I've found that you would be pleasantly surprised at the amount of people who are there for you, because I think, there's a lot of bad stuff in the world at the moment, but I'd like to think as a humanity on the whole, there's still a lot of good people out there. And the more we help each other, the better the world is.
There we go, Graham. Oldham up next in the Challenge Cup. Great interview with George, and of course, at the end, really important to highlight the work that State of Mind doing. It's probably listening on reflection. I recorded that interview earlier today. Quite hard hitting for a lot of people out there in terms of the message, in terms of what might resonate with a lot of people who are watching, listening. So, yeah, if people do need to seek help, there is help out there, and it's up to you to then make that step, isn't it? But Graham, Oldham up next in the Challenge Cup. Are you expecting a similar lineup to St Helens? Or are you expecting something a little bit different?
I think we'll see a couple of tweaks. I think we know that Hadley's going to be out from a concussion protocol perspective, so that's one definite that we do know about. The other one, I think, in the press conference today, Peter's mentioned about Mikey, just seeing how he pulls up after coming back from that injury after only having a week out. So we need to see how that one plays out. But I think there might be, like you alluded to it in the interview with George there, about one or two, maybe just got a bump or a bruise or a little tweak of something that maybe just need that week off from a game to just recover. I think we've got a good enough squad to be able to put next man up scenario back on the table again. We've got a good enough squad to cover every single position there. So if there are any, I think he will go with a strong squad, don't get me wrong, but I think there maybe just be one or two tweaks.
Yeah, and I don't know, listeners, viewers, watchers to this, Willie Peters is quite good at a bit of smoke and mirror sometimes, and he don't elaborate too much in the pre-match press conferences about who's fit, who might be available. So who knows? Sometimes it is a bit of a lucky dip in terms of squad selection, because what you'd look at it, Mikey Lewis, for example, you can't imagine any scenario where he didn't. He played against St Helens, played the game properly. There's no reason whatsoever to think that he would be dropped. Who knows, though? That's the thing, isn't it? And sometimes it's what Willie doesn't say, which sometimes make you allude to who may be playing or not. But I think, like I said, when I spoke to George, Graham, about the reserve lineup, you wonder, has he primed people to play? But then also, them players are desperate to play anyway. So, yeah, I don't know, Graham. I think he'll play the strongest possible side available to him. I really don't think he's a coach who'll rest players unless they're really needed to be rested. And I think that's great credit to him as well. Yeah,
it is. And I think it's an honesty and a trust thing as well. Look, players want to play, 100%. Players want to play. And I think that's why players like Richardson, Brown, those who were in the reserves on Saturday's game, they want to be playing Super League level. They're pushing, and they won't get that experience unless they have to drop down to reserve to get match fit, match competition. And it was a good opposition that they came up against on Saturday as well. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think he'll go with a strong squad. I think we've got enough firepower to overpower them. But if we, for 1 minute, take them lightly, I think that the squad that George was reeling off there, there's lots of experience and intelligence in that squad. So we fall off the game plan, or we take our eye off the ball for a minute, and we could get punished and find ourselves in a little bit of a hole like we did. I think it was 2016. He said. So that's just one thing that I think we need to just forget about, is that whole complacency and just presume that we're playing a Super League opposition this week. We prepare for that. We prepare a squad good enough with a game plan good enough to win that game on Friday. Friday.
Yeah, and they've got lots of experience in that Oldham side. Obviously, they're at the latter stages of their careers, barring PLT, who it's not 100% sure as we record this whether he'll be able to play or not.
Yeah, I think it is, John. I think Willie Peters has said in the presser today that he's not playing because he's our player and he doesn't want him cup tied.
Yeah, which is fair. And I'll tell you what, and that's a huge loss to Oldham, isn't it, in terms of what he's contributed to them. But it's an experienced side. They'll come hoping to give a good account of themselves. But I'm expecting I'm expecting 40-50 points at least past Oldham.
yeah, I think if we apply ourselves well with the same attitude we showed on Friday against Saints, then for me there's only one outcome. I think with for Oldham, this is their opportunity to show for them what good looks like, as in their ambition is to consolidate in that championship and then work towards Super League. So this will be a benchmark of where they've got to aim for. So the players that they've got in there now have got lots of Super League experience, but that's not necessarily going to be a squad that's going to be around for Super League for them for next season or a couple of seasons' time. So they've got to plan properly. They've got to do things right. They can't just invest everything into this season and then boom or bust it next season when all those players are too old or they can't afford them. So I think this will be a tough test for us. Like we didn't take to York lightly in round one. I think we put a professional performance in there with a strong squad. I think we go again with the same attitude and the same principle of if the best players are fit, they play.
Yeah. Which leads us now, Graham, to question time. You'll be pleased to know we're light on the ground with questions.
Okay.
That's probably because I put the question time post out late. But Adam Wadforth, who's a regular asker of questions, and we appreciate them. With memberships now at 9,600. Of course, the club have now said there's no memberships available. It's a waiting list, which is great credit to the Robins faithful. Do you think the club will be forced to look at inputting a permanent stand in the south stand ahead of next season, similar to the one they inputted for seats in the east stand for this season? I think, Graham, what they're more likely to do is look at, for some of the big games towards the back end of the season, they've probably left the door open to put temporary seating in the event of, when we get to, September time, if we're playing these big games, this is the opportunity where they can really maximise, because putting stands up, infrastructure, you're not talking a few $100,000, you're talking millions to put these stands in. Yeah,
and you've got to have a consistent base of people wanting to use that stand to be able to do it. Otherwise, it's a lot of investment just for a one season wonder. So I think we've got to play it carefully. We've seen it at the back end of last season. I think it was the last 2 or 3 games, the playoff game, whereby they had the south stand back in on a temporary basis. So I think you're right. I think we could see something like that for the big games. But again, as we record this on Tuesday, we will have seen, many people have seen the news this morning about the whole expansion of the retail section.
Well, I'll hold that thought, Graham, because I'm going to ask you another question.
Okay, all right. But yeah, in terms of the capacity issues, fantastic to see that we've created another waiting list now after increasing that membership up to 9,600 now. So yes, we've got to keep going well on the field to keep that interest in the club, and then I'm pretty sure that if that sustained level of interest is in there, it's going to force the hand of the club to think about how do we maximise on this opportunity of this extra membership, which would obviously bring extra income, but then that's going to be offset with the expenditure, like you say, of either temporary accommodation in the stand or looking at something more permanent.
Yeah, a question slight on a different topic, Graham. Taylor May, of course, we saw him pictured at Craven Park last season when he came to support his brother Tyrone. We saw him in the Old Kingston Rovers shirt that Tyrone had played in. He was having his picture taken with supporters of Old Kingston Rovers. That was at a time when he was suspended from rugby league in terms of the NRL stand-down policy that they have when players are charged with certain offences. He's now, them charges have been dropped, which means that Taylor May is free to play rugby league. Of course, there's no option really for him to play for the Robins at this stage now because we don't have a quota spot. But it does open up the door to Taylor May. Would you like to see him being a Hull Kingston Rovers player next season?
If it could be proved that he was in the right mind space for it all, and it sort of put it all to bed now that this is all over, and he gets back to playing some good rugby, and he would add to the squad, because obviously, like you say, it's an important spot with a quota spot. So whose quota spot does he take up? If it would add to the squad, potentially, but again, there'll be other players that the club are keeping their eye on, for next season. Does he fit part of Willie's plans for the squad for next season? I guess we'll have to wait and see what the club think on that. Fans will have their opinion on it, whether he should or he shouldn't, will or he won't. But it's not just about one player; it's about the squad, and it's about the makeup of that and integration with the rest of the squad, the playing style, the ethos, everything that Peters has created over the last 3 years. Players now have to fit into that rather than just because they're a name or they've got certain ability. That's not good enough at the minute. It has to be, you've got to fit into that criteria and that environment that we've created here and thrive in it.
Yeah, and I think what also needs greater clarity on, and this is what I'm trying to find out, is obviously Rhys Martin, Tanganoa, they were supposed to come off the quota spots for next season. I don't think that is fully confirmed yet, whether that is actually happening, which of course then creates a better scenario for the Robins in terms of their recruitment. There's no doubt whatsoever that 𝗕𝗂𝗡𝗃, absolute phenomenal talent for someone so young. I think the big thing for me is, before you think about whether the Robins could sign 𝗕𝗂𝗡𝗃, is where's Tyrone May heading? Because I don't think you don't get one if you don't have the other, and I think that's where we're at. So yeah, there's a big question mark over that. But hey, look, it's a great space conversation for us to be in, because it's a long time since we've had this opportunity to be talking about signing a young NRL prospect who is actually, very talented. So next question, Graham. How important is the announcement or the actual development of the Craven Park footprint, not just to the community in East Hull, but in terms of the sustainability of the club and the potential for attracting future talent to the club?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really important. It's a massive investment portfolio that's been put together, and now it's not been announced today. This morning it came out and officially looks really impressive from the graphics, and listened to a couple of the interviews that
everyone loves a picture, don't they, Graham? Everyone loves it.
Love an infographic. But yeah, the interview that Paul Lakin gave as well just set the tone for it around what it's going to mean for the players of having their own space and a sort of a world-class facility for players, not just for match day, but for their working environment. So when players go to work, they want to work in the best environments possible. So this will provide for them. It's going to provide for the academy, the women's team, etc. The youth development teams. It's going to be a home for the charitable arm of the club in the foundation. So it's going to give them a base to deliver their great community work from as well. But then the retail side of it as well is going to provide, I presume, much necessary and much needed income to the club as well, which again, no doubt will get recycled through to the club. So again, a huge announcement. Just shows that the work that's been going on behind the scenes that was announced today, it's going to set the club up for the next generation. It's going to redevelop that part of the world. It's pretty much unused land, as Paul Lakin said in his interview. It's been unused for pretty much 30 years, that piece of land. So bringing it into good for the club, for the community, for retail benefit as well. It can only add to the stock in the east of the city. Hopefully, it drives a lot of initiatives through to the health and well-being of people in that area as well. I think there's a talk of a gym being part of it as well. So again, from a fitness, healthy lifestyles perspective, reaching out into the community to be able to provide that as well, and enhance, I think, that link between the professional club angle and the community itself.
Yeah, and I think you know, it's probably, well, you can't downplay it, but when you look at things like Coldplay coming to Craven Park, you know, we're talking about unheralded developments, not just at Craven Park, in terms of East Hull as a community, as a place. And I think that's what I admire about the board at Hull Kingston Rovers, that they're looking beyond the rugby club. They're looking at the community. The foundation is a huge part of that. The fact that they'll be able to relocate to the Warby Centre, which gives them added space to work in and provide activities and you know, things for the community to do, but also provide them with a working space. You know, it's really progressive, isn't it? And yeah, there's the commercialised aspect of it in terms of providing space for businesses, retail. I think Paul Lakin, when he spoke, he said, look, the businesses that are coming in, they're not in East Hull at the moment. This is a new opportunity for people. And I think I'm sort of looking at the board, and I think we forget sometimes when Paul Lakin has done such a fantastic job for this club since he's come back in. You know, the danger is that we forget about the legacy that Neil Hudgell is leaving, because ultimately he is still bankrolling the club. He is still putting his hand in his pocket to make sure, but he's doing it with a view to him stepping away. But not only him stepping away, leaving a legacy that he won't want his name on anything. Don't get me wrong. He's quite happy to go into the shadows, but he's going to leave a legacy that will go far beyond what we ever thought would ever be achieved while he's been chairman of the club and part of the club and owner of the club. And, you know, I think that's what I don't want to go amiss here, that the work he's done to get us into this position, you know, it is tremendous.
Yeah, it's immeasurable in my opinion what Hudge has done. Without him, I dare to say we probably wouldn't have had a club as we've got now. Nowhere. So everything that's coming on the, you know, good news story that's coming on the back of the on the pitch success, the off the pitch announcements that we've had recently, and this one this morning as well. Again, without Neil doing what he's done for the club over the, you know, the umpteen years that he's been involved, yeah, it's immeasurable in my opinion. I know he's plays it all down, but I think there's something definitely in that for us as fans to recognise and acknowledge that without him we'd be nowhere at the minute.
Yeah, Graham, it's always been a pleasure. The housewives will be able to go to bed tonight happy, or whenever they are listening to this Robin pod. So the dulcet tones of Graham Turner will surely put you to bed whenever you are listening to this Robin pod this week. Of course, it's Oldham up next in the Challenge Cup on Friday night. If you go in, make sure that you are loud and proud. And for now, live, love, and laugh and be happy.
Singing a song when the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing along.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members.